I'm 33 years old, married to Lila, 28, for 4 years before she did something unthinkable. Lila and I met right after I graduated from college. We both attended the same career training program, and that's where we fell in love. We didn't express our love right away. It took me a while to share my feelings. The truth is, I was cautious because I didn't want to be deceived by her sweet smiles. I had just come out of a toxic relationship and didn't want to jump into another one. We became close and admitted our attraction to each other. Soon after, we started dating. After 2 years, we got married and moved into a bigger apartment. Living with Lila and getting to know her every day was fun. I liked her personality. She always had something up her sleeve. As newlyweds, we were obsessed with each other. We did everything together. We ate, shopped, bathed, and even prayed together. I had read somewhere that spending time with your spouse strengthens the bond. That's exactly what I did with Lila. Before we got married, Lila and I decided not to have kids until we were ready, so we could enjoy each other's company without any distractions. Lila worked as a secretary at a big tech firm, and I worked as a construction worker. Our earnings were enough to sustain our simple yet sophisticated life, and we kept working hard, believing we would transition into better careers in the future. Between the two of us, Lila was more social and could make friends with anyone she wanted. I was her opposite. I barely made friends and was only close to my older brother. Lila had a best friend named Julie, 28, and they had been friends since their early school days. On my end, I stuck to my brother because it was difficult for me to open up to new people. I had few friends but no one close enough to be called a best friend. Lila and Julie were so close that if you didn't know better, you'd mistake them for sisters. They were both blonde, had the same eye color, and acted similarly. Julie was like family to us, and we visited each other frequently. Julie was a lawyer, and her husband ran his own business. We often arranged outings as a family unit and hung out at least twice a month. Being an introvert, I tried my best to build a strong relationship with Julie's husband, Tom. But no matter how hard I tried, it didn't go smoothly. Our conversations felt forced, and everything we did felt forced too. Despite feeling this way, I never complained when Lila and Julie planned outings or vacations for us as a family unit. I understood that Lila was only trying to make us have fun and not get overwhelmed with work. I also tried to use those opportunities to shed my introversion. Tom was no stranger to me at all. Lila was also very close to him, and since they had known each other for at least 2 years before I came into the picture, I didn't suspect anything fishy. That changed one day when Julie asked to meet me at a cafe. When I met her, she looked worried, and the first thing she said was, "I think Tom is cheating on me." Initially, I was confused because Tom didn't seem like the type to cheat. He loved Julie so much and literally adored the ground she walked on. Anytime we went out for dinner, a picnic, or to their place, Tom always treated Julie like she was the only woman on earth. It got to a point where Lila began to compare me to Tom. Every time we returned from a team hangout, she had a way of pointing out the things Tom did for Julie and the things I didn't do for her. She complained over and over until it got on my nerves. It felt like Lila was jealous of her best friend and how her husband treated her, but she never admitted it. Tom inherited a big landscaping business from his father, so even without working hard, he had money rolling in and could afford to buy Julie fancy things and other expensive stuff. Each time Julie received something fancy from Tom, she would call and tell Lila excitedly, and they would talk about it. But immediately after Lila got off the call, she would say nasty things about Julie and how she didn't deserve to get 2 expensive bracelets in 3 months. I never mentioned this to Julie or Tom because I felt it was a best friend's thing to want what her best friend has. So when Julie told me she suspected Tom was cheating on her, it shocked me. I didn't try to vouch for him because I knew it would be foolish. Just as I was trying to look at things from her angle, it dawned on me that she was supposed to be conversing with Lila, not me. When I asked Julie why she was talking to me instead of Lila, her response made my throat dry up. Julie told me that she suspected Tom was having an affair with Lila, her best friend, my wife. I didn't know what to say, but I told her it wasn't possible that Lila would be having an affair with her best friend's husband. On my end, I was a good husband to her, and I showered her with enough love and attention. I knew I didn't gift her as much as Tom gifted Julie, but I tried my best to gift her on her birthdays or any occasion we celebrated. Even though I doubted Lila could stoop so low as to cheat on me with her best friend's husband, a part of me believed it was true. I almost zoned out retrospecting Lila's behavior over the last few months. I realized that Lila indeed had been acting differently. She no longer had time for me like she used to, and she had this explainable glow and excitement every time she was about to step out. Lila also became so cold, and we would stay in the same room, and it would feel like she wasn't there. Our conversations felt forced, and her bubbly sense of humor was gone, even when I tried to crack jokes. I took it as a phase that would pass eventually, but I was wrong. Aside from that, Lila recently renovated her wardrobe and got more tight and revealing clothes. She wore them to work and any time she went out. They made her look like a teenager in heat. I wasn't the kind of person who objected to my wife's clothing choices, so I never said anything. All this while, I didn't know that Lila started wearing those tiny dresses to seduce her best friend's husband. So after Julie told me about her suspicions, we decided to investigate on our own before jumping to any conclusions. When I got home, I waited for Lila to fall asleep so I could go through her phone. She was clean as a whistle. I checked all her social media accounts to see if she had been communicating with Tom there, but I couldn't find anything. I searched for a week and even went through her work laptop, but there was nothing. At one point, I even felt bad for trying to find something that might not exist. But when I saw how distant we had become in just a few weeks, I was sure she was seeing someone, even if it wasn't Tom. On the other hand, I didn't know that Julie had hired a private investigator to follow Tom around. After what seemed like a week, and some days of the PI following him, Julie's suspicions were confirmed. Lila was indeed having an affair with Tom. After we saw all the pictures and videos of them hanging out, kissing, and doing what cheaters do, we were heartbroken. I don't even know who was more heartbroken between us. Maybe it was Julie because it wasn't easy to find out that the two people she trusted most could betray her like that. As for me, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was mad. It was painful to know that all my sacrifices were about to go down the drain because of a wife with no contentment. She always had her eyes on everything Tom was doing for Julie, and in the end, she betrayed her best friend and destroyed 2 marriages. After Julie sent all the evidence to me, I tried my best to stay calm. The first day, I didn't sleep at home because I feared what I could do to Lila. I had to go and meet Julie because she was the only one who could relate to my pain. After comforting each other, I dropped her at her house and went to look for a motel to pass the night. Funnily enough, I still couldn't sleep because I was deeply hurt. The thoughts of Tom being intimate with my wife kept running through my head. Around the same time, I began to put the pieces together and understood why our intimate life had just disappeared. The following morning was a weekend, so I went home. Lila was there, unbothered that I'd slept out. Just looking at her made me angry, and I tried to control my emotions, but I couldn't. I had to confront her about it. When I told her I was hearing rumors about her and Tom, she froze and asked me how I found out. I expected her to deny it, and she did not disappoint. She told me it was insane to believe she could betray her best friend and cheat on me. She looked so convincing that I would have believed her if I didn't have the evidence the PI gathered. After laughing at her ignorance, I brought out my phone and showed her all the pictures and videos Julie had sent me. When Lila saw them, she flipped immediately and said that someone was trying to frame her. She claimed the videos and pictures weren't what I thought. I told her the videos were from Julie, so they couldn't have been forged. I had barely finished speaking when Lila started yelling at the top of her voice. She said Julie was trying to destroy our marriage and that she always knew Julie was jealous of her. To be honest, that was the last thing I expected to hear from her. She was such a great actress. Before I could say another word, she took her car keys and stormed out of the house in anger. I wasn't bothered when she left because I knew she would come home, but I didn't know she had gone to confront Julie. I was at home looking at the evidence when I got a call from Julie that Lila had come to her house and physically assaulted her. She even broke a couple of things in her home, and they were no longer friends. It felt like a joke because I didn't expect Lila to go and confront Julie even after she had been caught red-handed. It didn't make sense to me. Shortly after, Lila came back home looking all peaceful like nothing had happened. When I asked her why she had gone to assault her best friend, her response was, "Because I had been wanting to put her in her place for a long time." Her response said it all. At that moment, I knew I had been blinded by love the whole time. It was evident that Lila never loved Julie as she made it look. She had been bitter about her friend's progress and had been pretending the whole time. When I went to see Julie at the hospital later that evening, I was shocked at the extent of what Lila had done to her best friend of so many years. Between the two of them, Lila was the wild one, and Julie was mainly peaceful. She was unique in her own way, and I guess that was what Lila envied. I had a gut feeling that it wasn't just about her husband. Lila must have felt threatened by Julie's success and life of ease, so she wanted to take away the one thing that mattered to her. It turned out that Lila didn't only hurt Julie physically, she also hurt her emotionally and said things a best friend shouldn't say. Lila vented in front of Julie and Tom about how Julie always acted like the better one and how she was tired of seeing Julie live the life she wanted. She even went as far as saying she was tired of Julie rubbing all her success and gifts in her face and hated her for always making her feel like she was nothing. Julie said she was shocked when Lila said all those things and didn't know she felt that way about her all those years. With that, I knew Lila was a lost cause. If she could betray her best friend like that, she could do anything to me. She was capable of cold-blooded actions, and that wasn't the kind of woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Never. Funnily enough, after her relationship with Tom was exposed, she tried to come back to me. Although I have told her I'm seeing a divorce lawyer, I haven't shoved the papers in her face yet, so she thinks there's still a chance. Her attitude changed, and she stopped going out like before. Now she's trying to do things she stopped doing. She tries to seduce me and cook for me, but I can see through her pretense. I've been eating out since I found out, and I won't stop until Lila is out of my house. After Julie and I found out about Lila's betrayal, Julie begged that I control my emotions and continue with Lila so she could think our marriage was still intact. Now the thing is, looking at her disgusts me. I cannot let her touch me because my mind is no longer with her. Despite everything she has done, a part of me still loves and yearns for her. What do I do? If we fix things in the future, she will still cheat on me. We've only been married for 4 years, and she's already cheating. At the same time, I just wish I could kick her out of my house and throw her things on the lawn so the neighbors can know how much of a loose woman she is. Meanwhile, Julie officially divorced Tom last week, and Lila has been low-key insinuating that Julie wasn't good enough for him. She still thinks I bought her lies about Julie framing her. Lila believes our marriage will continue as before, but she's mistaken. Anyway, it's all for the best. Julie has been cooking something up for Lila, and I can't wait to see her face when it happens. Most importantly, I can't wait to throw her cheating butt out of my house. Hello everyone, thank you for your comments. While waiting for Julie's signal, I shifted to a hotel because I couldn't bear Lila's face. I felt disgusted looking at her. Meanwhile, Julie has fully recovered from the injuries she sustained from Lila's assault, and she has dragged Lila to court. She sued Lila for alimony and for physically assaulting her. When Lila got served, she stormed into my workplace because she wasn't aware of my hotel. She said Julie had no right to sue her for alimony, and she wouldn't give her a dime. She even said Julie started the fight between them, so she did everything she could to defend herself. I knew that was a lie, because when she returned from Julie's house that day, she said something about putting Julie in her place, which did not seem like a defense. I told her it wasn't my problem anymore. She dug the road for herself, and now she has to travel alone. Long story short, Julie had the upper hand in court, and the court ruled in her favor. The court ordered Lila to pay up the alimony, and she was fined extra for assaulting Julie in her own home. Although I wasn't present for the live action, Julie kept me updated. That day, I went back home to complete the task I'd been longing for. As soon as Lila saw me, she started playing the victim, and I left her alone to deal with all this mess. She had the nerve to say I was the worst husband because I didn't support her. She said I should have sided with her to attack Julie together. When she stopped talking, I told her husbands were meant to support loyal and faithful wives, not a cheating one like her. The annoying thing was, she still acted innocent and asked what I meant by that. Seeing that stupid, innocent look on her face angered me more, and I began to yell at her. I told her I knew she was sleeping with her best friend's husband, but I had to pretend I didn't, so in the end, she would experience what it felt like to have her hope shattered. As I spoke, I pulled out the divorce papers and asked her to sign them. When she saw them, she fell to her knees and began to beg me. She said she had lost everything and couldn't afford to lose me. I told her it was already too late and began to throw her things out on the front lawn, just as I had imagined. I was surprised to see Lila cry and run after me in the house like that. I didn't know she had it in her. I ended up throwing her out, and I made sure I removed all her property and littered them on the lawn. All of this happened last week, and since then, she has been calling me, sending me numerous voicemails and multiple messages a day on all our mutual social media platforms. She even went as far as calling my older brother to talk to me on her behalf. But I asked him to block her, and he did. I will make another update as soon as she signs the divorce papers. Now for the second update. Hello everyone, I'm glad to see your comments. For those asking if I felt fulfilled when I threw Lila out of the house, yes I did. It was as if a burden had been lifted off my shoulders, and I wish I could do it repeatedly. I kicked Lila out of the house last month. The last time she came to my house, she met Julie there with me and was so angry. I know the last person she expected to see was Julie, and it wasn't a beautiful sight for her to behold. She was also shocked that Julie and I had become great companions while she lived out there in pain and misery. I even have a bit of news. Lila tried to return to her mother's house after I kicked her out, but when her mother heard that she had betrayed her best friend and cheated on me, she disowned her and kicked her out of the house. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't glad when Lila met Julie at my house. I loved the look of defeat on her face when Julie answered the door. We didn't even let her into the house because she was negative energy. Maybe if I hadn't stepped in on time, she would have assaulted Julie on my property. But I yelled at her and told her that if she showed up at my house again, I'd arrest her. Well, she didn't leave immediately. She still stood and created a scene, saying I'd been cheating on her with Julie. When Julie heard that, she started yelling at her in anger. She told Lila she wasn't a backstabbing witch like her and would never take her best friend's husband. We thought that after exchanging words, Lila would go away in shame. But despite everything Julie and I said, she still stood on the porch and fought back with her words. She was like a child with multiple personalities. One minute she would cry and beg me to take her back. The next minute she would be all defensive. It got to a point where she was disturbing the neighbors' peace, and neighbors began to come out. At that point, I was forced to call the police on her, and she was arrested. I'm happy to announce that Lila and I are divorced. As for Lila, she's out of my life for good. She lost it all: her husband, her best friend, money, and even her mother. Worst of all, Tom dumped Lila after their affair was brought to light. I'm sure she's sulking in regret. Whatever she got was well-deserved. I'm glad I belong to such a fantastic community. Thank you everyone for your comments and advice. I do not take this community for granted. Next story, my cheating wife want to take my money. I reckon it's time I shared my story about what went down in my marriage and how low I feel now. Hope y'all can bear with me, my English ain't perfect. I'm a 33-year-old fella named Jack, and my wife Sarah is 37. We've been together for over 15 years and hitched for 8. We got ourselves a 4-year-old daughter. We live here in the US, but we're originally from Poland. Our relationship has had its fair share of ups and downs. We've seen some mighty fine times and some rough patches too. We ain't perfect, but every time we thought about parting ways, our hearts kept telling us to stick together and keep going. The trouble started when I decided to move from Poland to the US, hoping for a better life and dreaming my wife would join me so we could build a new family here. She agreed, and I spent a year and a half without her before she finally came over. It was tough as nails at first, getting a new job, dealing with language barriers and all that. I saved up a good chunk of money before Sarah joined me, just to make sure we were secure enough to buy a car, rent a house, and so on. A couple of months in, we were good, happy together, making plans to have kids. One morning, I was getting ready for work and saw a notification on Sarah's phone. The message said, "Hi, honey." Now, I'd never snooped through her phone before, but this time, I did. I found a whole conversation between her and some fella from her last job in Poland. It wasn't looking too bad, but it sure raised a red flag. He was asking what she was wearing and the like. She also told him not to text her so early because her husband might see it. There was a lot of, "Hi, honey, how are you?" and such. I confronted her, telling her I knew everything. She denied any cheating, claiming he was just a friend from work, and that's how they talked. I didn't believe her, and kept asking about that guy for the next 8 years, trying to get the truth. She often got upset, asking, "What do you think I am? You think I was doing something with him? I'd never cheat on you. He was just a friend from work." I never believed her and started checking her phone regularly. In the next few years, living in the US, we bought a house on a mortgage, and our daughter was born. We were quite happy, but then I started having serious back problems. Long story short, I got a condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which causes constant pain in my back and affects my life real bad. My spine's fusing together, and there's inflammation all the time. The first 4 years after our daughter was born were a real struggle. Sarah was supportive at first, but over time she got tired of seeing me in pain. About 3 years ago, she started texting a new guy from work. Some texts were about going to a hotel, and she said she missed him. We had another talk, and she told me it was just a stupid way she talked to guys, and she was sorry, and it wouldn't happen again. Call me a fool, but I believed her. I felt terrible, but we had a little child, and I didn't want to break up and get a divorce. 5 weeks ago, I found out she was texting someone again. This time, she was deleting messages more often, and I couldn't figure out what she was up to. I came up with a plan and told her maybe we should meet new people and then get a divorce because we argued a lot, and I didn't know how long we could keep living like that. What I really wanted was to see if she was up to something again, and boy, was I right. A week later, I saw her full conversation with her new boss. He's 60, got a wife and 2 kids. They were talking about a future together, planning dates, dinners, booking hotel rooms overnight, and they were sexting and fantasizing about each other. I was super emotional when I found out. She blamed me for everything and tried her best to protect him too. We talked about what happened for days, and then I brought up that first guy from Poland 8 years ago. She admitted they kissed multiple times and touched each other. When she told me that, my heart stopped for a moment. Didn't know what to do, and we had another massive argument. Just to add, the first guy's married, trying to have kids. The second guy's married with 2 kids. The third guy's married with 2 kids. I don't want to drag this on too long, but there's more to what happened in the past 8 years. The biggest problem for me is I still love my wife, and I'm completely shattered and broken right now. We're planning a divorce and trying to separate. It's tough because we got a mortgage and a 4-year-old daughter. Financially, we're not doing great either. Sarah told me she doesn't love me anymore and doesn't want to be with me. I've invested so much in our relationship and still love her. It's really hard, and I don't know how to cope with this. I know I wasn't the best husband ever, and my back pain didn't help either. But I question myself every day now. Did I really deserve this? After Sarah admitted to kissing and touching that first guy, it felt like my world was crumbling. I was standing there feeling like a complete fool. All those years of doubting, all those arguments, turns out my gut was right all along. I couldn't wrap my head around why she'd do this to me. We had a life, a daughter, a home. I thought we were building something solid, but it was all built on lies. For the next few days, I couldn't focus on much. My mind kept racing back to all the moments when I suspected something was off. All those late nights when she was glued to her phone, the secretive smiles, the unexplained absences. It all made sense now. She had been betraying me over and over with different men, and I was too blinded by love and trust to see it. We decided to talk things through one evening after putting our daughter to bed. I sat on the couch, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. Sarah sat across from me, looking more distant than ever. I asked her how long she had been feeling this way. When did it start going wrong for her? She said it wasn't about me, that it was her own issues. She felt trapped, unappreciated, and sought validation elsewhere. I tried to understand, I really did. I knew my illness had put a strain on our marriage. I wasn't as active or fun as I used to be. The pain was constant, and some days it was all I could do to get out of bed. But I never thought she'd turn to other men for comfort. I asked her why she didn't come to me, talk to me about how she felt. She said she did, but I was too wrapped up in my own pain to notice. I felt like a failure. I had failed as a husband and a father. I couldn't keep my family together, and now we were looking at divorce. Sarah was adamant that she didn't love me anymore. She said she wanted to move on with her life, find happiness elsewhere. I was devastated. I couldn't imagine life without her, without our daughter by my side every day. We agreed to take things slow for our daughter's sake. We'd figure out the living arrangements and finances without rushing. But inside, I was a mess. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The betrayal hurt too much. Every time I looked at Sarah, all I could see were the lies and deceit. I loved her so much, but the pain was unbearable. As we moved forward with the divorce proceedings, things got even messier. Sarah wasn't content just to separate. She wanted to take as much as she could. She started demanding a larger share of our assets, arguing that she had been the primary caregiver for our daughter and that my medical condition had left her with a greater burden. It was like she was determined to punish me even more. We both hired lawyers, and the legal battle began. Sarah was relentless, trying to paint me as an unfit father who couldn't provide for our daughter. She wanted the house, a significant portion of my savings, and hefty child support payments. It felt like she was trying to strip me of everything I had left. I fought back, not just for myself, but for my daughter. I wanted to ensure that she would have a stable future, and I couldn't let Sarah's vindictiveness ruin that. The court hearings were grueling, each side presenting evidence and arguments. It was emotionally draining, and the stress was taking a toll on my health. Sarah's behavior during this time was cold and calculating. She showed no remorse for what she had done, only a determination to win. It was like I didn't even know the person I had been married to for all those years. The woman who once stood by me, who promised to love and cherish me, was now my adversary, willing to go to any lengths to get what she wanted. Our daughter was caught in the middle of this turmoil. She sensed the tension and often asked why Mommy and Daddy were always fighting. It broke my heart to see her confused and hurt. I tried to reassure her, telling her that no matter what happened, I loved her and would always be there for her. Despite the legal battles and the emotional strain, I focused on creating a new routine for myself and my daughter. I spent as much time as I could with her, taking her to the park, playing games, and reading bedtime stories. I wanted her to know that despite everything, she was loved and cherished. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I realized that I needed to stay strong, not just for my daughter, but for myself. I couldn't let Sarah's actions destroy me. I started seeking ways to cope with the stress, finding solace in small joys, and focusing on my health. I leaned on friends and family for support, drawing strength from their encouragement. Sarah, on the other hand, seemed to be moving on quickly. She started dressing differently, going out more often. I suspected she was seeing someone, maybe even one of the men from her past. I tried not to think about it, but it was hard. Every time she left the house, I wondered where she was going, who she was with. The court finally issued a ruling. We were granted joint custody of our daughter, but I had to give up a significant portion of my savings and pay child support. It wasn't the outcome I had hoped for, but it was better than losing everything. I moved out of the house, finding a small apartment nearby. It wasn't much, but it was a fresh start. I focused on creating a new routine, finding small joys in everyday life. I spent as much time as I could with my daughter, trying to make her feel safe and loved. It wasn't easy, but each day I felt a little stronger, a little more hopeful. Months passed, and I gradually adapted to my new life. Living in that small apartment wasn't easy, but it became a sanctuary where I could start healing. I focused on my job, trying to put in extra hours to make up for the financial hit I took. It was tough, but I was determined to provide for my daughter and myself. The legal battles had left a bitter taste in my mouth, but I tried to push past it. I knew I had to let go of the anger and resentment if I ever wanted to move forward. My priority was my daughter. She needed a stable, loving environment, and I was going to give her that. Sarah and I maintained a civil relationship for our daughter's sake. We communicated about her needs and schedule, but that was it. There was no warmth, no familiarity, just two people trying to co-parent. It was awkward and strained, but we managed. I had to remind myself constantly that it was all for our little girl. One day, while picking up my daughter from Sarah's place, I noticed a new car in the driveway. It was a sleek, expensive model, nothing like the old car she used to drive. I didn't ask, but I knew she had moved on and was likely seeing someone new. It stung, but I tried not to let it show. My focus was on my daughter, who came running out with her backpack and a big smile. "Daddy!" she yelled, wrapping her arms around my legs. Moments like these made everything worth it. Over time, I found small ways to rebuild my life. I reconnected with old friends, took up hobbies I had long abandoned, and even joined a support group for people going through similar situations. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone, that others had faced the same kind of betrayal and come out stronger. I also started paying more attention to my health. The stress had taken a toll on my condition, but I was determined to manage it better. I began a new treatment plan, incorporating exercise and diet changes that helped ease the pain. It wasn't a cure, but it made my days more bearable. One evening, after putting my daughter to bed, I sat down and reflected on the past year. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the endless nights of doubt and pain, they had all brought me to this point. I realized that despite everything, I had come out stronger. I had my daughter, my health was improving, and I was slowly building a new life. I thought about Sarah. Despite all the hurt she caused, I hoped she found whatever she was looking for. I couldn't hold on to the anger anymore. It was time to let it go. It wasn't for her, but for me. I needed to move on, to find peace within myself. One day, while at the park with my daughter, I met a woman named Emily. She was there with her son, and we struck up a conversation. It was casual, easy, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of something new. We exchanged numbers, and over the next few weeks, we began to see more of each other. Emily was kind, understanding, and patient. She knew about my past and accepted me as I was. Slowly, I began to open up, to trust again. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt, but she was always there, reassuring me with her presence. As the months rolled on, Emily became a significant part of my life. She met my daughter, and they hit it off immediately. Seeing them together filled me with a sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. It was a new beginning, a chance to build something positive out of the ashes of my old life. Looking back, I realized that while my marriage had ended in heartbreak, it wasn't the end of my story. It was just a chapter, and now I was writing a new one. I had learned to cherish the good moments, to find strength in adversity, and most importantly, to keep moving forward. Life had a way of surprising me, and despite the pain, I was grateful for the lessons it taught me. I had my daughter, my health, and a new chance at happiness. And for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future.